Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to GDB Selects, round 2 in the review vision mirror now. Moving on to the third round of the season, let's not waste any time today and look back at how we did last week. So going over last week's results, we tipped 6 out of 8 games. Could have had 7 out of 8 if I hadn't have changed my tip from the Storm to the Warriors. But let me tell you, you know what? I don't even want to talk about it. That game breaks my heart so much. Yeah, let's just move on. And then obviously the Dragons got completely blown away by the Dolphins, which in hindsight probably seemed the likely option, but here we are. Moving on now, we do have a brand new announcement. We have a Discord channel. That's right, a Discord server where you can come in there, chat to me, ask questions. We've been sharing bet slips and tips over the weekend. It's been absolutely awesome connecting with you guys on a different level. So if you do want to join the Discord, that is completely free. We are now also offering channel memberships. So from as little as $4.99 a month, you can help keep the channel going. You get access to limited edition loyalty badges, emojis to use in the chat, and you'll also get access to special members only areas in the Discord, which will give you early access to different tipping tools and NRL datasets, as well as obviously priority replies from myself, and help us just really unify that community. So if you are keen to become a member, I really do appreciate that. However, if you don't want to spend the money, that's fine. My videos will always stay free, and my Discord is also free. So jump in the Discord now, and let's get chatting. And if you don't know by now, we are running a subscribers tipping comp this season. 3 big prizes on the line, including grand final tickets, a jersey of your choice in 2025, and an NRL shop voucher. All the details to join are in the video description. It is completely free to enter, but you must be following me on Discord, it's social media, subscribed on YouTube, active member of the community, etc., because I do want my prizes to go to my actual fans. So join now if you're keen. And speaking of the tipping comp, we do have a new leader, Nick taking out top spot all on his lonesome with 26 points. We also had 7 people tip a perfect round last week, so congrats to all 7 of you. And good luck to everyone else in the tipping comp this week. Alright, so without further ado, let's get stuck into my tips and predictions for round 3. Alright, kicking things off on Thursday, we have the grand final rematch, baby. Let's go. The 10th placed Penrith Panthers taking on the 9th placed Brisbane Broncos at Bluebet Stadium. Starting first with the Panthers recorded their first win of the 2024 season, getting past arch rivals Parramatta 26 points to 18 in what was their first regular season win over their Western Sydney rivals in 5 attempts. Despite dominating the field position battle, they were still far from their best and found themselves behind at halftime thanks to uncharacteristic errors and bombing certain tries, which opened the door for the Eels, who were good enough to capitalise and make them pay. The right edge of Tungo and Taruva terrorised the Eels' left edge all night long, with both players crossing the line and running for a combined 488 metres. But don't get me wrong, despite an average showing from the Panthers, there were certainly times when they fell into their systems and looked like the side that won 3 comps on the trot, but will still be striving for consistency. And in terms of teams list for the Panthers this week, James Fisher-Harris left the field with a shoulder injury after a massive collision with RCG and will undergo scans. Personally, I doubt he'll be named to play this week. And as for the Broncos, Brisbane also got their first win of the season last week, beating the Rabbitohs 28 points to 18 in a scrappy contest. Both sides were well aware of the importance of the 2 points and crumbled under the pressure, coming up with a combined 20 errors in the first 40 minutes. And if you do the math on that, that's an error every 2 minutes. Despite the shaky start though, Reece Walsh clearly enjoyed being back on a full-size field and looked dangerous with every carry and picked up a try double. The Broncos managed to hold on to the ball in the second stint, completing at 84%, which allowed Cobbo and Mariner to showcase their class and look strong through the middle with Haas and Carrigan back together. And very similar to the Panthers, Brisbane also showed glimpses of their potential last week, so this grand final rematch will really come down to who can get it together and get it together the fastest. And looking at the teams list for the Broncos, Adam Reynolds re-aggravated that knee injury he picked up in Vegas and probably is unlikely to play this week. I believe Kevin Walters was hinting as much. That will likely mean that Jock Madden is handed the reins. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Panthers have won 6 of the last 7 meetings. That obviously includes the 2023 Grand Final. The Panthers also have a strong record in Sydney, only losing once to the Broncos since 2011 and winning 6 of the last 7 games. The live odds for this one currently have the Panthers at $1.32 favourites, with the Broncos coming back at $3.42. The line is currently 9.5, and the over and under is 37.5 points. Should be a cracking game to start round 3. I mean, obviously grand final rematches are always, well hyped and well invested, so I'm sure they'll have a lot of eyeballs tuning in this week. But I am going to take the Panthers here 1-12. A couple of reasons for that. I do think that Reynolds won't play, which is a massive out for the Broncos. The Panthers also playing at home as a massive boost, and they really showed last week how strong they could be if they were to get it right. I do, however, think that the Broncos forward pack may be able to get one over on the Panthers without James Fisher-Harris, so I do expect a very close game, but I am going to take the Panthers 1-12. Alright, moving now to the first of 2 Friday fixtures, starting first with the 14th placed Warriors, taking on the first placed Canberra Raiders at Apollo Project Stadium over here in Christchurch, New Zealand. Starting first with the Wars, let's just not talk about... Alright, the Warriors couldn't snap their now 15-game losing streak to the Storm, conceding 2 tries in the final 5 minutes to go down 30 points to 26. Andrew Webster's men made it really hard for themselves in the first half, coming up with 7 errors at key times and going behind early, but looked dangerous every time they were inside the Storm's 20. They managed to clean up their handling in the second 40 and were all over the Storm, enjoying 67% of possession and running in 3 unanswered tries before 1 poor defensive read and an unfortunate deflection from a charge down in the final minutes allowed Xavier Coates to steal it for the Storm. Despite the loss though, there was still obviously plenty of positive signs. SJ was looking as good as ever, AFB and Barnett looked strong through the middle, and their outside backs looked really strong carrying the ball too. They do, however, need to find a way to get Roger Tuivasa-Sheck more involved, because obviously right now their attack is so right side dominant. He's really wasted on that left edge and has looked really dangerous in the limited chances he's had, so he really needs to be brought into the game more. And looking at the teams list for the Wars, no new injuries, which is good. Wade Egan will continue to be monitored day by day, while Chance Nickel-Klukstad and Murata Niukore won't be available for a couple more weeks. And as for Canberra, the Raiders moved to 2-0 on the back of another strong showing, this week taking down the West Tigers 32 points to 12. An ill-disciplined opening from the Tigers gifted the Raiders a mountain of possession, 71% of it in fact for the first 20 minutes, as the Raiders raced out to an early 14-0 lead. Despite briefly allowing the Tigers back into the contest, the Raiders were clinical once again with their forward pack causing problems on and off the field, with impressive cameos from Morgan Smithies and Zach Hoskins no doubt giving Ricky Stewart headaches, with Corey Horsburgh and Elliot Whitehead expected to return in a few weeks' time. After only being involved in close games all of last year, the Milk continued their 13-plus win streak for a second week, and they looked bloody good doing it. In terms of teams list for the Raiders, both Jordan Rapana and Seb Chris succumbed to head knocks, and their condition will be monitored this week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, it's always been a close game between the two sides, with 5 wins apiece in their last 10. The last time these two sides met was a Golden Point thriller over here in Auckland, with SJ getting the Warriors home in that one. The Warriors, they do have a strong record in New Zealand. They've won 12 of the last 16 games across the Tasman. The live odds currently have the Warriors at $1.43 favourites, with the Raiders coming back at $2.83. The line for this one is 7.5 points, and the over-under is 42.5 points. Should be a really good game. There's probably an underrated sleeper game of the round for me. You've got the Warriors, who are now 0-2, coming up against the Raiders, who are 2-0 to start the season. And as I just said, they've always been really, really close games between the two sides. They're fairly evenly matched, and I feel they are even more so this year. Strong forward packs, big outside backs. But you know what I'm going to do. You know what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to take the Warriors here, of course. Wars 1-12. The Warriors look bloody good against the Storm. They arguably were the better side, deserve to win. And if they're able to string that kind of performance from the second 40 together for a long period of time, they could easily take down any side in the competition. So up the Wars 1-12. Alright, and the final game on Friday adds a new chapter to the Book of Feuds, with the 8th placed Sydney Roosters taking on the 16th placed South Sydney Rabbitohs at Trellian Stadium in Sydney. Starting first with the Chooks, the Roosters were their own worst enemies, getting beaten by the Manly Sea Eagles 21 points to 14. It was a tightly contested match characterised by errors from both sides leading to points. Once again, James Tedesco was the standout performer, but despite boasting the more talented forward pack, the Roosters' engine room lost the physicality battle through the middle. Dom Young looked good in his Roosters debut, but even his momentum-shifting intercept couldn't provide the spark needed, with handling errors ultimately proving too costly for the Roosters. The Roosters really need to get that sorted, because if they can fix up their handling, they really are a top 4, potentially top 3 side, but their own errors are just really costing them. And looking at teams list this week, Billy Smith is expected to overcome a hamstring niggle and be available for selection this week. Obviously, Spencer Leniu is still out until round 10. And as for the Bunnies, in a crucial game to kickstart their season, the South Sydney Rabbitohs went down to the Brisbane Broncos 28 points to 18 in a contest riddled with errors and missed opportunities. Throughout the match, errors plagued both teams, with a staggering 20 combined errors in the first 40, and outside of a 10-minute blitz after halftime, the Bunnies never really looked likely. They struggled through the middle with only one forward running for over 100 metres, which never allowed Walker to find his flow. Latrell Mitchell was once again a standout, leading from the front and really trying to inspire his side. But unfortunately for the Rabbitohs, it was more of the same, with their own ill-discipline and errors coming back to bite them for the second week in a row, and it's really concerning for me, because this is the exact issue. I feel like a broken record. This is the exact issue they had last season. It reared their head in Vegas. It's come again in round 2. I really do see them struggling again this week, because they just seem to find a way to switch off and to lose games. Alright, and in terms of the teams list for this week, Jack Whiten makes his club debut after having served his suspension. So a big in for the Rabbitohs here. It will be interesting to see whether he lines up in the centres, whether he potentially moves into the halves as the season goes on. I know there is some calls for him to maybe partner Cody Walker in the halves, but we'll have to see what Jason Demetriou does with his new recruit. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Book of Feuds has been evenly matched recently at 5 apiece in the last 10. The Roosters, though, they have won 3 of the last 4, including last year knocking out the Bunnies in that final game of the regular season. The live odds currently have the Roosters as $1.61 favourites, with the Bunnies coming back at $2.33. The line for this one is 3.5 points, and the over-under is 39.5 points. Geez, a really tough game to tip, really. I mean, both sides have so much strike, but their own ill-discipline and errors really come back to bite them. It's really going to be who can string it together for the longest period of time and not cough up possession. Oh, it's a tough one, but I'm going to take the Roosters here 1-12. The Bunnies are the sort of side that can probably surprise everyone and get the win here, but the Roosters have shown a lot more so far this season. They have the forward pack to outmatch the Bunnies, and they've obviously got just as much strike on the edges as the Rabbitohs. And so based on current form, you have to take the Roosters here 1-12. Moving now to the first of 3 Super Saturday fixtures, starting first with the 17th placed Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the 13th placed Gold Coast Titans at Belmore Sports Ground. Starting first with Canterbury, the Bulldogs' run of both poor form and luck continued, eventually getting outclassed by the Cronulla Sharks 25 points to 6. It was a fiery and tumultuous first half, with the Dogs arguably the better of the two sides, but a few contentious calls going against them. None more so than when Viliami Kikau's try was overturned due to referee interference. Similar to last week, Cameron Ciraldo's side showed an improved defensive resolve, holding the Sharks to just 6 points through 60 minutes before eventually fading away. The Dogs really need to find a way to get Crichton more involved, whether that's reshuffling their backline or switching their attacking shape, as he's currently having very little impact on the game. I do find it hard to see them improving at all without making some tough selection calls, bringing in the likes of maybe Bronson Xerri and Toby Sexton, because right now the Dogs really lack any punch. In terms of teams list for the Dogs this week, Josh Adokar could make a speedy recovery to the side following that AC joint injury. There shouldn't be any more injury force changes. The only changes we might see would be tactical, and again, I've said it week in and week out, I would love to see Bronson Xerri and Toby Sexton given a crack in the first grade side this week. And as for the Gold Coast, the Titans had the bye last week, but they couldn't give new head coach Des Hasler a win on debut, getting torched by the St. George Illawarra Dragons 28 points to 4. Despite initially showing promise with Alofi Kampereira's try, the Titans faltered as errors plagued their game, allowing the Dragons to capitalise and secure 4 unanswered tries in the second half. With star playmaker Kieran Foran absent as well as key positional changes, the Titans lacked creativity in attack, highlighting concerns for both their defensive and offensive strategies. Hasler expressed disappointment with the missed opportunities and emphasised the need for improvement, particularly in their defence. I know it was only one game, but I do think there is some cause for concern with the Gold Coast, but they should have more direction this week as they are expecting Kieran Foran to overcome his calf injury, while David Fafita and Jaden Campbell aren't expected back for another week or two. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, there's no clear stats either way, with both sides having mixed success. In the last 5 meetings, there's been plenty of points though, averaging 50 total in the last 5 games. The live odds currently have the Dogs at $1.85 favourites, with the Gold Coast coming back at $2 even. The line for this one's only 1.5 points, so it could really go either way, and the over-under is 43.5 points. Alright, fairly straightforward game to tip for me. I do like the Doggies. I don't know why. I think the Dogs should be favourites. They are favourites, and I do think they beat the Titans. Even with Foran coming back, I didn't like what I saw from the Titans. The Dogs have had glimpses of brilliance. We've obviously had, a bigger sample size from the Bulldogs and the Titans, with the Titans only playing one game. But there are some signs of life in the Dogs, and if Cameron Ciraldo makes the changes that I think he will, I think the Dogs can get their first win of the season by 1 to 12 points. Alright, moving now to the second game on Saturday, we have the 11th placed St George Illawarra Dragons taking on the 2nd placed North Queensland Cowboys at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. Starting first with St George, the Dragons were completely destroyed by the Dolphins to close out round 2, being held scoreless 38 points to 0. St George had no answer for the Dolphins' onslaught and were kept inside their own end for a majority of the game. Zach Lomax once again impressed on the wing with 185 run meters through 27 runs, giving it all he had to get his side moving. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for the rest of his side, who lacked energy, looked fatigued, and came up with far too many errors and couldn't find that spark. After initially impressing in the trials and round 1, have the Dragons already lost their mojo? In terms of teams list for this one, Molo was sin bin late and will likely miss a game or 2. And as for the Cowboys, in a thrilling showdown in Townsville on Saturday, the Cows clinched a remarkable come-from-behind victory against the Knights, securing a 21 to 20 point win with a decisive field goal from Chad Townsend in Golden Point. Despite trailing 12-0 at halftime thanks to a multitude of errors, the Cowboys displayed incredible resilience, narrowing the gap in the second half with a late try from Jeremiah Nanai setting the stage for a potential win. However, a missed conversion by Val Holmes led the game into Golden Point, with Chad Townsend eventually sealing the victory with a field goal, maintaining North Queensland's undefeated streak in 2024. It was a cracking game of football, but still plenty of things for the Cowboys to work on, who were far from clinical. In terms of teams list for the Cows, 2 back rower Helem Lukey sustained a high ankle sprain and will undergo scans to assess the extent of the injury, and was seen wearing a moon boot on his left leg. That indicates a potential concerning setback for the young 22-year-old. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Cowboys have won 5 of the last 6, including 4 straight. However, they historically have a poor record at Netstrata Jubilee, only walking away with the 2 points once since 2005, but they have only played 6 games there since then. The live odds currently have St George at $2.77. North Queensland are currently $1.45 favourites. The line for this one is 6.5 points, and the over and under is 43.5 points. Alright, pretty straightforward one this. I'm going to take the Cowboys here, 13+. The Dragons were awful on Sunday night, and the Cowboys have been impressive at stages already this season. So I think the Cowboys run through them fairly easily. Alright, and the final game on Saturday has the 12th placed West Tigers taking on the 3rd placed Cronulla Sharks at Leichhardt. Starting first with the Tigers, Benzie Marshall's inaugural game as West Tigers coach ended in disappointment as the team suffered a 32 to 12 point defeat against the Canberra Raiders at GIO Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Costly errors gifted the Raiders favourable field position, resulting in a concession of soft tries. One such incident occurred just before half-time as the Raiders capitalised on a penalty kick for touch, catching the Tigers' defence off guard with a simple draw-and pass that allowed Xavier Savage to cross the line untouched. The Tigers did, however, show moments of brilliance through the likes of Buller, Fainu and Coruscant, but clearly still have a long way to go. And as for the Sharks, in a commanding performance, they delivered a dominant second half to defeat the resilient Bulldogs 25 points to 6 at PointsBet Stadium. Cronulla were unable to break through early, only scoring 1 try in the first 57 minutes before finally clicking into gear. Nico Hines called the shots in style for the Sharks with 116 run meters, 1 line break, 4 tackle breaks, and 23 tackles, but it was his defensive effort that was the most impressive. Cronulla's bench rotation was also outstanding, with Tom Hazelton, Dale Finucane, and Taku Hautapua all having an impact. The major negative though was obviously Brenton Nakora being sin-binned for a late and completely unnecessary shoulder charge, and he has now been suspended for the next 2 games. And in terms of teams list for the Sharks, Braden Hamlin-Uele and Royce Hunt are expected back on deck this week. Jack Williams will likely move into the starting side as well, in praise of Nikora. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Sharks have a strong record over the Tigers. They've won 10 of the last 11 meetings. That includes 4 straight. They've also won by 24 points or more in their last 4 meetings. Looking at the live odds too, Tigers massive underdogs at $3.90, with the Sharks coming back at a very short $1.26. The line for this one is currently 11.5 points, and the over-under is currently 44.5 points. Fairly straightforward one here, ladies and gentlemen. Sharks 13+. Alright, moving now to the final 2 games, starting first with the 7th placed Parramatta Eels taking on the 4th placed Manly Sea Eagles at CommBank Stadium. The Eels gave the Panthers a good run for their money, but ultimately came up short, 26 points to 18. Parramatta made the most of their early chances handed to them by the Panthers, with Joey Lussick crossing early, followed by 2 brilliant tries orchestrated by Dylan Brown and finished by Hopgood and Lane. The Eels were held scoreless in the second half, unable to break through Penrith's line, despite having a number of decent chances. Despite the loss, I thought it was another good showing for the Eels forward pack, who held their own and looked to be the goods. Moses, though, was clearly still not 100% with that groin injury, having just the 5 runs. With his running game normally being such a strong part of the Eels' offense, they definitely missed him. And in terms of teams list for this one, Kalma Tuolangi suffered what I believe is a shoulder dislocation, so will be in doubt this week, while Bailey Simonson won't be available after failing his HIA. And as for Manly, the Sea Eagles continued their unbeaten streak with a 21-14 point win over the Sydney Roosters on Sunday night. Manly found themselves on the board early in the match through the aid of a bit of luck from the bunker, as Tom Trbojević's challenge on James Tedesco forced an error and was given the all clear. Speaking of Turbo, his stellar performance once again proved to be pivotal, consistently putting his side on the front foot with powerful carries. The Sea Eagles showcased their attacking prowess on the edges, with Kohler proving to be a problem with his speed, and Brooks and Olakau'atu threatening on either side. Another good showing for Anthony Seibolt's men, albeit against a Roosters side unable to hold onto the ball. And in terms of teams list for Manly, they are down another winger, with Tommy Talau suffering a game-ending ankle injury. They believe it's either a dislocation or break, but we won't know until the scans come back. But he certainly won't be lining up to play this week, which probably brings Vega back into the starting side. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Parramatta have won 3 of the last 4 meetings and 2 of the last 3 at CommBank. This should be a cracking game, and I think it's really, really tight. You'd probably say that the Parramatta have the stronger forward pack and Manly have the stronger back line. I'm going to take the Sea Eagles 1-12. I think the Eels were exposed last week on their edges, and the likes of Turbo, Brooks, Kohler could really have some fun up against Harper, and again a new combination with Simonson expected to miss this week. So I am going to take the Sea Eagles as live underdogs here 1-12, but really this could go either way, and I do genuinely believe this is a coin flip game. Alright, and the final game of round 3 has the 15th placed Newcastle Knights hosting the 5th placed Melbourne Storm at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. Starting first with Newcastle, the Knights went down in agonising fashion to the North Queensland Cowboys, 21 points to 20 in a golden point thriller. Newcastle enjoyed 62% of the ball in the first half, but could only manage 2 tries. As is often the case in rugby league, the second half did a complete 180, with the Knights seeing just 39% of the ball and coming up with unforced errors, allowing North Queensland to square it up and eventually steal it in golden point. Newcastle now find themselves 0-2 to start the season after finishing 2023 on a high, and have another tough task this week. Looking at the teams list too, Jaden Brayley may make his long-awaited return this week, with Jack Hetherington and Inari Chiwala both to be monitored this week with an ankle and quad injury respectively. And as for the Storm, bloody Melbourne pulled off a remarkable comeback over the Warriors, storming home late to win 30 points to 26. It was all the Storm in the first half, with the Warriors coughing up possession, with Hughes and Pappenhausen having it all their own way. They found themselves completely outplayed though for the first 30 minutes of the second half, with frustration and fatigue really starting to set in. They looked dead and buried with 10 to play before a penalty got them down the other end of the field, and a beautiful set play got Pappenhausen across the line for his second, followed shortly after by one of the greatest buzzer-beating tries ever scored, with Xavier Coates flying over Dalen Martinez-Lesniak to give the Storm the W. And now maybe I'm being bitter, and to be fair, I probably am being bitter, but I don't think the Storm necessarily deserved to win. I thought they looked pretty weak through the middle. To their credit though, they did come up with some really classy plays when it mattered most, and ultimately got it done. So, and in terms of teams list for this one, Jerome Hughes surprisingly has been suspended for 2 games after making contact with the referee. At the time, everyone sort of laughed it off, but the NRL has really come down on Hughes for making contact with the ref, and so he'll be unavailable for the next 2 games. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Storm, they have a ridiculous record against the Knights, winning 11 of the last 12 meetings. However, the Knights downed the Storm last time out in Newcastle, 26 points to 18. Alright, this is actually kind of tough, because if Hughes and Munster are both out, then all of a sudden we have a new look halves combination for the Storm up against a fairly full-strength Knights side. At this stage in the week, I am going to take the Storm 1 to 12. Obviously, once team list comes out and things move throughout the week, I may change that tip. So if you do want to see any updates to my tip, you must be a member of my Discord going forward. There's a special channel in there called Tip Changes, where I post any changes to my tips and reasoning behind that. But at this stage, we're going to take the Storm 1 to 12. Alright, thank you as always for watching. If you are new here and you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, drop your tips and predictions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.